Hello, Stephen Mj here. I have two servers, two computers, I should say. I have the server 2016 that I have just installed, and after I installed this server, the other thing that I did was to add the rows on this server, so you can see that. Let's see. You should be able to see, if I move this in here, that I have, if I go to Server Manager, I have Active Directory Domain Services and DNS configured or installed and configured. So I've already done that. The other thing that I want to point out is I do have two network adapters, and out of those two network adapters, let me go to Network and Sharing Center. I have Ethernet 1 and Ethernet 2. As far as Ethernet 1, I have configured that and given that, well, actually that one is obtaining the IP address automatically. So I'm on the MCC network, so that's getting its IP address from the MCC network. But on the Ethernet 2, if I go to the properties of that, you can see I configured it with 192.168.1.1. That's the same IP address for my DNS server, which is this particular server. So if I were to jump on the client machine, you notice that okay, it's the same thing. If I if I were to get into the Network and Sharing Center, I have two adapters, and it is on the second one, this one. If I go to the properties for that, you see that I have the 192.168.1.10. The default gateway is that server. That's the same as the preferred DNS. So that's on my client. So on that client, if I were to oh no, not that one. If I were to do CMD, and on that client, if I were to do ping 192.168.1.1, I can ping the server. So that's good. And then I want to verify that I can do the same thing on the server. Ping 192.168.1.10. All right, so there is connectivity between those two machines. That's what I wanted to verify. And then on that server, I am going to go ahead and get into Active Directory users and computers. And in Active Directory users and computers, I am going to add a new user, and I'm going to give him the name Peter Franklin. The username is going to be P Franklin. All right, and for the interest of time, I'm going to uncheck that and say password never expires. I'm going to give Peter Franklin a password, and I'll hit next and then finish. All right, so for Peter Franklin, I'm going to go to properties, something that I should have done. And in terms of member of, he's a domain user, so I'm going to add him so that he is one of the administrators. All right, so I'll apply and I'll hit OK. So Peter Franklin is on there as one of the users. Now, time for me to jump back onto the client machine. I am on the client machine now, and let me close all this stuff. And on this Windows 10 machine, I'm going to properties. You can see it's not part of a domain at this point. I'm going to do change settings and then come over here and do change. And in terms of the domain, I did name that net 152.local. That is the name that I gave my server. So if you were to come on over here, you can see in Active Directory domain services, that's net 151, not net 152. So it's a good thing I went to double check that. I'll change that and then click OK. The following error occurred. This has to do with the domain name, so let's cancel that. In terms of the computer name, I'm going to change it to net 152 workstation. I'll just abbreviate that as the computer name and then click OK. All right, now it's doing it's conducting that domain controller. This is what you want to see. So the username that I'm going to do is Peter Franklin, and the password that I gave, and then click OK. So now it's going through the process. This is the message that you really want to see. Welcome to net 151.local. So that's good. You must restart the computer. So now the client machine is, I'm going to hit close and then restart. Now the client machine is going through the process of restarting since it has successfully joined this domain using this particular user. And once it finishes restarting, it should be I should be able to log on. Okay, so here is my client machine. I am going to go with other user, and notice I'm signing to the net 151 domain. I'm going to put in Peter Franklin and I'm going to put in my password and enter. So now welcome Peter Franklin. Peter Franklin is joining, is accessing the domain, and this is the first time. So the user profile is being created. It might take a little bit, but if there are any network resources, I have not shared any folders or anything from the domain. But if I had done that, from now on, Peter Franklin should be able to access any resources that are on the domain. So on here, you can see that's Peter Franklin, and Peter Franklin is logged in to the domain. And because I have two network adapters, you can see there is the mchenry.edu, and then there is that net 151.local that I created on my server. Right, so if you are having problems, what I would say is ensure that you have given your domain the proper name when you created it. That should have been the first domain in a New Forest. All right, so the other thing that you may also want to double check, if you go to DNS, notice that I have my forward lookup zones. DNS was configured on this server in my forward lookup zones, notice I have net 151. What's important is this is set as the parent folder with this host A. This is the IP address. And notice there is another one. This is coming from MCC. The MCC computer is the 10.0.0.15, but this here is critical in connecting that workstation. And I also have this workstation that I just that I just created, excuse me. You can see there is a host A with the IP address coming from that client machine, and the computer name is also listed in there. This ensures that our DNS is working like it's supposed to. All right, so that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I will be glad to help you. So notice the net 151 workstation is also showing in Active Directory users and computers because I have successfully joined it to this domain. All right, so that's it. The most of your problems though are going to be coming from how you configured DNS and how you configured Active Directory domain services. Make sure that that is configured correctly, as that will be critical in you bringing that workstation into this, bringing the workstation in. And again, this for me is within the virtual environment. These are my two virtual PCs. This is the Windows Server 2016. This is the Windows 10. What else did I want to show you? I think that should be it. If I were to minimize that and then minimize that. Yeah, that should be it. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be glad to help you with that.